Tabletop RPG series Dungeons & Dragons have seen many differing video games based on its many campaigns and rule sets. Mostly turn-based RPGs that keep in spirit of the tabletop, like the original Baldur's Gate by BioWare, well before they would release the likes of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, Dragon Age, and Mass Effect. But there have been standouts in putting the D&D universe in more action games. One of which being Capcom's two D&D arcade beat-em-up games found in the Chronicles of Mystara collection, and another being a spin-off of Baldur's Gate known as Dark Alliance, which, though not developed by BioWare, was developed by Snowblind Studios for the PlayStation 2 and ported to GameCube and Xbox in 2002. And in 2021, 20 years after the original release, a remaster by Square One Games would release on the PS4, PS5, Switch, PC, Xbox Series, and Xbox One, which is what I'll be looking at here. How does this action dungeon crawler hold up after all this time? Let's find out. The story, while having 3 different characters and classes to play at the start, is pretty much the same across the board. The main character arrives in Baldur's Gate, only to be ambushed by a new thieves guild. After the town guard saves the heroes, they arrive at the Elf Song Tavern and end up helping them in purging a rat infestation, which, after that, would in turn lead to a grander conspiracy involving not just the new guild in Baldur's Gate, but other factions across the land, from the Dark Elf attacks on dwarves to brainwashed lizard folk through the Onyx Tower, led by a fallen human general named Eldrith. On the story front, even if it feeds you lore mainly through conversations due to the game's linear nature, it's still decent enough to want to play through, so can't complain. As said earlier, Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance is a top-down hack-em-up RPG in vein of Diablo by Blizzard, or hell, even older than that, Gauntlet by Atari. Or instead of being turn-based, is now all action and where you press buttons for combat like melee, archery, and even magical abilities. You choose from 3 characters, the human archer, the dwarven warrior, and the elven sorceress, each with their own abilities, stats, etc. And growing up spoiled with Star Wars and its Jedi, I chose the sorceress for melee and spell power, which, due to her stats, ended up being harder than I anticipated, but I pulled through. Anyway, what is here works pretty damn well, given you gain experience after enough successful kills, and with the quests you finish and the combat, if a little dated, still functions, so not much to complain there. Neither is the exploration you do, besides maybe one thing: the platforming. And it has to be one of the most frustrating things I ever played in this game, as half the time, I feel the mechanic is a bit more delayed than the rest of the action, and ended up falling to my death so many times. Thankfully, the worst of it seems to be in the first third of the game, but still. In addition to the main campaign, there is an unlockable Gauntlet mode where you play as the Dark Elf Drizzt, in where with limited abilities, supplies, and time, if you have the patience, it leads to more unlockables, including the extreme difficulty, and after that, being able to play as Drizzt in any difficulty level of the main campaign. Said patience I do not have, but hey, there is more replay value in addition to the co-op gameplay. On to the visuals, which when I first saw as a kid watching my parents play on the PlayStation 2 back in the day, were very damn good looking for that console. Today though, still not too bad for its age, even with the little improvements like being able to play in widescreen and some cleaner visuals for HD TVs. I have experienced some slight frame rate issues here and there with the HD release, but nothing unplayable. What I was most impressed with were the water effects. Like, every time your character wades into a puddle, there is this very crisp looking ripple effect, which is still very impressive. The last thing to mention is the sound, and the music definitely does its job for its medieval fantasy setting. And the voice acting is pretty decent too. 2 actors being of surprise for me: Michael Bell, who voiced Chaz Fencer in Rugrats voicing Karn.
You speak the truth. I'd not expected you to make it through the gauntlet. Still, it matters little whether you kill me or not. For either way, you will still die.
The other being freaking John Rhys-Davies as Jarek, which makes this kind of funny as he was in Fellowship of the Ring, which was releasing in theaters that same month in December.
Well met, adventurer. Ethan has told me of how you rescued him in the sewers, and I have already heard of your bravery in the Shrine of Suffering. Soon, Master Elf, you will enjoy the fabled hospitality of the dwarves. Roaring fires, red meat off the bone,
You even have Jennifer Hale as Aelith and Kevin Michael Richardson as Slavis.
It still moves me. It's the spirit of an elven woman. She haunts this tavern, singing once every couple of nights.
It is done. Eldrith is undone. And her threat to us and our plans has been ended. And the Harper that defeated her, killed.
Overall, Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance is still a fine game to play, and having the HD version just makes this classic all the more accessible. $30 US might be a little steep for quite a few, but if you can wait on a sale or find a physical for retro consoles for cheap, you're in for a good time.